everybody. Carlton Pearson, and welcome to Come Monday. Come Sunday is the movie, come Monday is the movement. And it is indeed in motion. There's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of thought expansion and traveling in curiosity, asking questions. We've sort of left this old idea of over-certitude to this new exploratory, adventuristic, curious journey toward whatever. It's like we're like the universe has pointed us in a certain direction, and we don't always have specific directives. I've always felt that God had me focused in a certain direction, but I wasn't always sure of the destination, except that would be whatever the ultimate determination of my life would be. And you don't always know. You just kind of, and you should enjoy the journey more than the destination. Because the point between A and B, A and Z, is where you really live. A is the start, Z would be the finish, but starting is one thing and finishing is the other. It's all that distance in between, and that's what we are emphasizing consciously when we emphasize Come Monday. What happens on Monday is different from what happens on Tuesday. We've been very, very busy traveling around the country. I speak all over America. And twice a month here in Tulsa at the All Souls Church, which I've done the last 2 Sundays. I was actually supposed to travel again this weekend, and I like travel, but not as much as I did when I was younger, as far as geographical moving. But my mind never stops moving. I believe that we're not only multi-dimensional people, we are interdimensional people. It feels like I'm always moving. I spend a lot of time between the notes. And between the words, the space in between, it's electrifying, it's soothing, it's euphoric, it's conscious altering. It's almost like a drug. And I've never taken drugs, a few over-the-counter legal drugs. Never had any mind-altering drugs in the illegal sense or even in the recreational sense. But in my spiritual life of consecration and my Pentecostal transcendence, I've always had those places and spaces that were so incredibly amazing to me, and I've learned how to live in that space and not just go there occasionally and then come out and make a point and then go back in, come out and do a letter or a note. The tones are all in between. The note is that one. And so I think the culture itself, the human species, is homesick for that original, authentic reality that was non-physical, that was transcendental. That's what non-physical means, that you go to that other space. A lot of people are taking a lot of drugs because they want to find that place where they are totally at one with who they are and maybe who they aren't. But there's not a sense of not being, just being. You know, we're called human beings, not human doings. Most people spend all their time doing. So come Monday, we're in that very, very special space. I want to make mention before I go further about Monday and what this whole thing means is I had a wonderful weekend. When was Aretha Franklin's memorial service? I've been following her on internet and watching other interviews, and I loved her so much since I was a child, but I was happy to be invited to the special private service for the family and a few friends, and then later on they opened it up. And people stood all night in line to get a seat. I was there and I got to meet so many different people. They let me have access to the backstage restroom because the service was like 9 hours and I had to pay a whole bunch of water bills. And you got to pay them bills or they'll cut it off. So I had kept going back. And every time I went backstage, I ran into Fantasia, whom I've known for a long time. She always throws her arms around my neck and just sobs, and we'd chat. And of course there was Jennifer Holliday and Jennifer Hudson. I spent time with Jennifer Holliday. my daughter Madge was thrilled to meet her. And Attorney General Holder was back there, and Shirley Caesar, the Queen of Gospel. And Dr. Holder and he was there with Mike Eric Dyson, whom I've known for several years. Brilliant minds, brilliant thinkers. Somebody said he might even consider running for president. Holder might, I don't know. But there's a lot of shifting going on, and we ran into so many people back there. Richard Smallwood was back there. I actually was back with Tyler Perry. We were both using the stool at the same time. And the speaker, Jasper Williams. I didn't meet him, but we were back there. Everybody's having little drinks. Many people were concerned about Jesse Jackson, who is been wrestling with Parkinson's disease for a few years. I thought he was having many strokes before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So many people said, what was the matter with Reverend Jackson? He's about 76. He'll be 77 at his next birthday. So he's slowed down a lot, but he's so sweet and has such a big heart. And I know he's a controversial figure, but so am I. Usually, it's when you're controversial, that means you're doing something. It's a law of physics. Anything in motion causes friction. And as Truman said, if you can't take the heat, you get out the kitchen. But we celebrated this voice. Aretha had a voice. And I remember when I first went to her concerts to see her in Chicago, it was the first time I saw her live. And about 80% of the crowd was non-black. I mean, she had a huge non-black or white following, and they adored her. And they followed her in the concerts with her songs. Sometimes African Americans take for granted their treasures, and it's others that seem to like them differently and celebrate them more. And Aretha was loyal to her fans, and her fans were loyal to her. She was a spiritual woman. She loved the gospel of inclusion. She asked me questions about it, and I remember the first time we did some music together, I texted her the lineup of songs. She liked Farther Along. She liked We'll Understand It Better or By and By. She liked Precious Memories. She was sort of futuristic in thinking what will happen. Her life was painful. There was a lot of pathos in it, a lot of passion. You can hear the pain in her songs. And one of the songs she liked was, because I recorded it, Farther along, we'll know all about it. Farther along, we'll understand why. So I was texting her the list that we were going to do together that night. And when I text the song Farther Along, she texted me right away back. She said, you know, for 40 years, I thought it was Father alone will know all about it. Father alone will understand why. She was thinking the only one that would know would be Father. And, of course, a lot of that is conceptually true. But I said it's really Farther along will know. God already knows all about it. Farther along will understand why. And we have a lot of questions in our lives that we don't really get the why immediately, sometimes at the very end, sometimes maybe in some transcendent experience beyond this life, we'll understand why. She said that ministers to me that I can now relax. I'm not going to try to understand everything now, and maybe we shouldn't. You just go through it and deal with it. And sometimes the universe itself, or the experience, I should say, itself speaks to you. The experience that you're going through, like when I went through cancer, I decided that cancer wasn't going to be my enemy and it wasn't going to be my killer. I named it my teacher. I think everything in life is about learning something. Every experience you go through, every intersection, every crossfire, every crossed line, every crossed moment, every feelings of hanging on a cross or being crucified, that's asphyxiation on a cross, that choking moments in life, they're your teacher. They're not your enemy. I don't have any enemies. I don't perceive or name or title anything enemy anymore. Not even opposition or adversarial. Of course, it's what you name it, but I name it teacher. Whether I need to learn patience or humility or courage or tenacity or resilience to get beyond self-pity when I was going through a bout with cancer. I remember I wouldn't use the term cancer, and I didn't. And I learned so much. I'm cancer-free today, but I learned so much. I wasn't studying cancer. I wasn't studying sickness. I was studying Carlton Pearson. Not the preacher, bishop, pastor, apostle, evangelist, and all the other religious titles. Not just the son and father and husband and brother. And so the non-physical me, the essence of who I am, became clearer to me. I think I can go through anything now, because I learned where and what my source is and what the force in me, the genius or the genie. You know, the genie's in the bottle. When you rub it the right way, it comes out and says, my wish is your command. I was rubbed in such a way that I found my genie. That's one of the things we want to help our friends and partners and followers of ComeMonday. What happens on Monday? Because Sunday can be a little bit superficial. It's the official religious day for most people. And it's sun and bright and worship, and especially in my tradition, our worship was experiential and always climactic, and there was always this powerful, explosive, usually experience in a song or a sermon or the service itself, but not always in the self. There is a self that's beyond religious ritual and rites and rules and dogmas and doctrines, and we all have them. And even if we don't adhere to them, our parents do, and their parents, in most cases, in most cultures. There's some kind of religious presupposition that everybody subconsciously submits to. But we're coming to a place and stage in history where religion doesn't have the same place, and we are actually creating our own experiences. And in consciousness, they're very, very powerful. Aretha was just getting to the place where she could do that. Her songs, whether they were secular or religious, they took us someplace. Whatever she was singing, it always had, to me, a church sound and a church feel. And I think that was the uniqueness. She was considered a national state treasure for the state of natural treasure in Michigan. We think she was all over the world. A great woman. Now she is at rest, whatever that means. She's at peace, whatever that means. She's on another floor in a different form, and so are all our loved ones. We're talking about astral theology, which is one of the most fascinating subjects I've ever studied in all my life. I started reading the book Astral Theology and Shamanism. I was always interested in spirituality, in people who were transcendent and transcendental, who went past the physical realities. And as an African, the culture believes in spirit possession, that you can literally be possessed by an energy or an entity, by a source or force or power, a genius, something that was accompanying you all your life, that was both guide and guardian. I think everybody sort of subconsciously, we call them guardian angels or whatever. An angel means a message or messenger. Scripture says, in beginning, gods, Elohim in Hebrew, a multiplicity, a consortium or council of gods. Gods created the heavens, the higher reaches and regions and rhythms of consciousness, multiplicity of them, and the earth. In beginning, gods, deities. That's what the scripture says. Not a monotheistic thing, but a pantheistic, or poly, meaning many gods or energies or sciences or whatever you want to call. You know, you can't really, as a finite being that's finishable, describe or define infinite beings or infinite realities. That means unfinishable. No beginning, no end. If anybody tries to define you, they're putting a limit or a limitation on you. So don't try to define, try to be refined, but don't be confined. Be free. And that's one of our great emphasis. Astrology is the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies. In beginning, God created heavens. And so there's always been this interest in, and what I named my ministry in 1977 was higher dimensions, which is higher measurements and messages and higher angles and higher angels. Some ascended way of thinking, some ascended way of being, climbing the higher lofty spaces and places of consciousness and in time. So astrology is the study of the different movements of the plans, and these celestial bodies are interpreted as having influence on human affairs and on the natural world, seasons. Many years and many hours did shepherds study the stars, and we now call them pastors, where the sheep were, and pastors, who were the shepherds or sheep herders, but they spent a lot of time looking up. I love, especially in the country when I was a boy, we lived for 7 years out in the country, though most of the time we were in the inner city and we had the downtown lights and all the other lights. But when you're in the rural areas, the constellations of the stars of the night is a little bit more crisp and non-threatening. For some reason, you would study and notice the stars. The sky is just full of them. And there's all these little hints of illumination. Every little sparkle hinted that there's more light than we could see. There's more light than we had noticed. There was a reflection of the sun someplace on the other side of the hemisphere, reflecting into the moon and reminding us that Sunday still existed. That sun is still shining. Even in the nighttime, there's always a hint that there's sunlight. Remember what I'm telling you. Even in fact, the darkest moments of your life, your life. There's always the destined and designed lights that I call night lights. The moon is the night light. Help you get through those sort of obscure and maybe even absurd and obscene times in your life. And that's what we're here for, to minister hope in the night, help in the night, healing to the hurts of the night plights, of those harsh, seemingly unsympathetic moments and experiences of life. And when you feel very alone and abandoned and alienated and isolated, those are all illusions, but they seem so real because perception is the ultimate reality, even though not always the ultimate truth. If you perceive yourself to be abandoned and isolated and alone and full of lack, then that becomes your reality. Ours is to help you change your reality. Rethinking, as Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, for decades, science popularizers have said that humans are made of sawdust, or stardust, I should say, not sawdust, stardust. And now a new survey of 150,000 stars shows just how true the old cliche is. Hear this: the 6 most common elements of life on Earth are including more than 97% of the percent of the mass of the human body. 97% of the mass of the human body, it's like the center of our galaxy or stars, has carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and phosphorus. That's what's up there. That's what we're made of, 97%. So there's a connection with us and the higher reaches. There's a soul connection with us and the higher reaches, higher rhythms. We automatically, as anthropos, we look upward. Again, that's the higher domain, the higher dimension, the higher measurements, the higher messages, the higher angles and angels. They're there. They're all around us. And when we elevate our consciousness, everything around us, as John Kennedy said, when the tide rises, when the tide comes in, all the boats rise. We want to see you living above whatever seems to be gravitational tug that pulls you down, at least to the place where your mind and your emotions are depressed. And there's so many millions of people who are depressed. In fact, I read a statistic that said 50% of the suicides are committed by people who have not been diagnosed as, and cannot necessarily be diagnosed as, having a mental illness. 50% of the suicides. Of course, psychologists say that 1 out of every 5 people that you meet are mentally ill. You may be somebody's 5th person. Something wrong with you. We all go through what we would call mental illness. We lose touch or contact with a certain reality, then we create another reality. Now, these same elements are abundant in the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Science is telling us all this kind of stuff. So, for the first time, astronomers have cataloged the abundance of these elements in huge sample of stars, 150,000. So we are up there. You out there, man. Y'all off in the deep end. You spaced out. We're all a bunch of space cadets. And folks who don't know how to go there spiritually will go there with a drug. Some conscious altering, often euphoric, mind-altering drug, whether that's alcohol or some over-the-counter legal drug, and or the Greek word for sorcery is pharmakia, where we get the English word pharmacy. All of the various forms of witchcraft always involve some kind of drugging. The old zombies in Haiti, the so-called witch doctors would mix up some kind of a potion and some substance and get it into the body of the so-called zombie, and they would be induced to some kind of catatonic place that seemed like they were dead, that the most sophisticated science couldn't detect elements of life in their mind and in their body. They would look like they were dead. They would actually be buried and put in a coffin. And after a certain amount of time, the witch doctor would go and kind of tap on the coffin when the drug was just wearing off, and that person would wake up. That's how they made them drunk. But they keep a certain amount of sluggish drug in them. That's kind of what religion does. It's almost hypnotic. You're kind of like a zombie. You do the same thing in church, whether it's Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, whatever. We get sort of catatonic and sort of hypnotized. Hypnosis is the Greek word for sleep. And we're sleep and sluggish. And we we allow people to use the power of suggestion to create a reality for us. You're getting sleepy. I've never been hypnotized in the scientific, professional way, but I've gone to sleep in church a lot of times. You can hear somebody's voice or music and you just kind of get in this space. Then they command you and you're considered zombies. Well, there's a lot of The Walking Dead. All this preoccupation on television with The Walking Dead. I mean, every time I see a lot of anything in the news or on television, I start hearing a spiritual message in that. What's going on? Why this preoccupation, particularly with young people, of The Walking Dead, flesh-eating humans that come back as cannibals? Where's all those crazy thoughts come from, and why is it such a popular pastime for so many human beings, adult and young, all age groups and all generations? Particularly though with young people. I think young people are seeing something in the culture that reminds them of Walking Dead. I think they think we adults don't relate to them, or even they are the Walking Dead. They don't get it. They're into the cloud, the iCloud. Again, the iCloud, that's another upward looking, this whole idea of cyberspace, outer space, outer limits, transcendent moments, transcendentalisms, beyond our physical experience and expression to our spiritual expression. Religion preempts that. We thought through religion we could access that spiritual place and space, and it's not really working so much anymore. So we have a whole generation of millennials and X generation people who are creating their own spirituality. They're creating their own transcendentalisms. They're creating their own cloud, mystical or mystic experience in the cloud. All that stuff's in the cloud. I don't even know what that means scientifically. I mean, I can't explain it, but it's in the cloud. You think it's in your phone. iPhone, iPad, iCloud, I am, Om, Amen. I think the new religion will be some kind of combination between humanity and divinity, spirituality and science. Conscience, consciousness, with knowledge, consciencia in Latin, connected with the ether or the otherness of our reality, that extraterrestrial reality, that above the earth, supernatural. Super is a Latin word that means above what is natural, above what is nature, beyond what is natural. I think there is a before, beyond, and a besides in spirituality. There is a God and a spirituality that's before the scriptures, besides the scripture, and beyond scriptures, beyond humans' capacity to read. You know, for many, many decades and millennia, most of humanity was illiterate. Huge percentage of humanity is still unable to read. Illiterate. They don't know the literal or the letters. The word literal and letter comes from the name. The scripture says the letter or literal kills. Spirit gives life. Even a literal translation of the Bible or transliteration, liter is the letter, the alphabet, there's something beyond all that. And even though I know what it is to have that euphoric, wonderful, transcendent moment in the Spirit of God and that's my language, and I know I'm someplace other than where I am. Or where I was. I might be sitting in the physical building, or I used to never pray without being on my knees. I didn't think a person was honestly praying until they were on their knees. I know that's not true, but that was my experience. And so I would be on my knees. I've got on my knees on my longer fasts, like 15 or 21 or 30 or 40 days. I always read the Bible on my knees, and with no food for days. I learned later that I should have water, especially after the third day. You really should always have water. I didn't know that at first. But I get in between worlds. I'd get in that space between the notes, that space between the words, that transcendent place. And I would become monastic. That also comes from the moon. Monasticism and monks. All that has to do with Monday. You have Saturn Day, Sunday, and then Moon Day. Miércoles is Wednesday in Greek. So we all have this ET, extraterrestrial, ET phone home. I want to go home. I want to go back to my original place where I don't feel like a foreigner, where I don't feel like I'm an alien, or I feel like I'm some abstract reality. The term astrotheology is used in the context of the 19th and 18th and 19th century scholarship, aiming at the discovery of the original religion. The first religion that human beings embraced was the idea of looking to the stars. Even in the Greek New Testament, it says wise men from the east came looking at a star, or for a star that would be over the place where the Messiah would be born. Wise men still seek him. These men came from the east seeking first the star as an indication of something that was going to occur on the earth and in the earth. We do it culturally now with the seasons, the different moons, and the different constellation of the stars. The Hebrew Bible says that in the beginning God's created. Okay, that's that upper space, this consciousness or conscience, this knowledge. Conscience is an inner feeling or voice viewed as acting as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of your behavior. What is your consciousness, or what does your conscience tell you? We're gonna answer that in a little bit. When we come back, we're gonna have a little Come Monday spot that you can learn how to join the Come Monday movement. Even though you may have watched the Come Sunday movie, there's a movement going on, and you need to be a part of it. So listen to this, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about conscience, or with knowledge. What do you know based on what you believe? Be right back. Hello, everybody. I'm Carlton Pearson, and I am so excited about the beginning of ComeMonday.org. Come Sunday was the movie. Come Monday is the movement into broader enlightenment and life. And as a member of Come Monday, you'll receive one video each Monday for the entire year. That's 52 videos in total that you'll receive every Monday morning to get your week started out on a positive and powerful note. I will also be sending you one each day, Monday through Friday, that will support the thought of the week. That's 260 emails throughout the entire year to inspire the genius inside of you. We will also provide a private Facebook group so that we can all come together in a safe environment and discuss personal, pertinent, powerful issues. You will also receive a digital monthly newsletter full of interesting updates and current events and exciting pictures. And I also want to offer you special VIP access to all of my events when I'm in a city near you, because I love to meet my people. And finally, we'll offer special pricing to cruises, concerts, live events, all for standing with us and becoming a Come Monday member. So sign up now at the special introductory rate of just $3 a month. That's just $36 for everything for an entire year. I think I'm going to sign up for that myself. You're on your way to greater enlightenment. I want to meet you there in consciousness. So go to your phones and computers now. Sign up and meet me come Monday. Yeah, Henry was just telling me about, Henry was just telling me about, he heard a conversation from Elon Musk talking about, who invented the Tesla, that they're creating some kind of downloadable apparatus that can help you somehow upload your memories into the cloud and download it later back to your body or another body. And I'll tell you what that is. That is human's desire for infinity, to reclaim its alwaysness. There's a sense of alwaysness in us, because when you look up, you can't see where the sky stops. It's time out of mind. That's what eternity means. We don't say there is no end to it, but we can't see an end to it. So something in the whispers of our spirit reminds us that we have always been and we will always be. And we think we have something to do with that scientifically, and we might, I don't know. But the soul and the cells have memories, and the memory of the soul and the memory of the cells, or within the cells, tells us that we've been here before, or that we've always been here, because we are connected to time through which we move in consciousness. There's a sense of belongingness to everything and always, the muchness and the allness, the infinite reality that we call God. We're homesick for that. And we don't want, a lot of these billionaires are having their bodies frozen or something so that they can come back. You know, they go places, and something in the soul reminds you that you will always be. That's pretty powerful. You have always been. You'll always be. Now, that sounds sort of spooky and otherworldly to some of you, but it's the same idea of being spiritual. Experience, actually, the English word has to do with spirituality. The only thing you really experience is spirit, because it's the only real you. Anything else is illusionary. The real you, the essential you, the always having been you, is the deific part of you, the divine part of you. It's your God self. It's your God soul. It's your God sense. It's your extraterrestrial sense or extrasensory perception. There is something out there, and I wouldn't emphasize it as much or so much if I didn't have my good old-fashioned classical Pentecostal roots. I think that I chose to come here in a Pentecostal family, and it wasn't just to speak in tongues and quicken and shout, and I love all that. I've done it. Now they're coming up with, I saw something on the internet about a young lady that, LaDonna sent this to me, that she calls it a light language. She don't know anything about Pentecostalism. She's never, doesn't even know what a Pentecostal church is, but she speaks in this, what she calls light language. And then they let you hear it on the internet. She sounds like, in fact, LaDonna felt it sounded like her language. She started crying when she saw that piece on the internet, and she sent it to me, and I saw it, and I thought, my gosh, what is the language of otherness? What is the language of otherness or etherness? Remember, I told you the word again in being born again. You must be born again. You must be born again. Again is anothen, English another, other, ether. The ethereal, transcendent, non-physical reality is coming alive in us at a level that we've not known in recent history. Maybe they knew it way back when there were less distractive things. But science is a hint into spirituality. Science is a form of spirituality. It's the better form of spirituality than religion is, because science is knowledge. Conscience, conscientia, with knowledge. It literally comes from a word that means being privy to. So this whole idea of monasticism and the moon and the ideas of monasteries are going to these secret, sacred places and spaces, both geographically and spiritually. If the moon is powerful enough to pull earth tides, it would then be powerful enough to make waves with our emotions. The moon pulls the tides and waves and causes all that stuff to happen. There's gravitational pull and energetic pulls from the moon. Well, if it can do that with water, and we are 80% water when we're born and 50 to 60% all our lives, and our brain is 80% water, the moon, or this whole idea of, I think we've tapped into something we weren't expecting to when we decided to go from Sunday being the movie to Moon Day being the movement. We weren't thinking exactly the way we're thinking now, because I began to study the moon and certain aspects of the science of the moon and the moon's influence on our lives and in our times and maybe even in our scheduling of the soul. If the moon is powerful enough to pull the earth tides, it's powerful enough to make waves, vibrations, incantations, and invocations in our emotions, in our spirit. It can affect us. The different, the half moon and quarter moon and full moon and the shifting moons and new moons, all that stuff has something to do with us. It's that we are made mostly of water, and just like the seas, your whole being is affected by the incredible, magnificent potency of the moon. Don't ignore this. It's happening whether you know it or not. I just want you to know. Ignorance doesn't mean to not know. Remember, it means to not notice. Ignore, to not make note of. We all love sun. Now we have to put shades on when we look at the sun. You don't really have to put shades on to look at the moon. In fact, there's a lot of moon watchers. They sit for hours and just watch the stars. You don't need shades. It's not going to burn your eyes. The sun will. It's so bright. It can cause some kind of disease in your eyes. But the moon is a softer light, and I like playing with a soft light. It's less abrupt. It doesn't irritate you. In my bedroom, I can open up the windows and let the moonlight come in. I like it really, really dark when I sleep, but sometimes I get in these moods when I just want to let the moonlight be there. Even if it's an overcast night, there's a strange, sort of ominous, soft light that hints that there's more, that hints that something is coming, something is powerful, something is close to you. When you're going through those real deep, painful, pitiful, pathological times of depression, there's always something in your spirit that says, this ain't, don't put a period here. This is just a comma. And be careful about using those exclamation points and making things so extravagant. Don't make your pathos so extravagant that it eats you alive. Remember, it's just temporary. This is the night light. The bright light is coming again, but you don't need the bright light all the time. So really fascinated with the whole idea. And the moon has been affecting us since we were born. In fact, in certain aspects of astrology, they want to know the time of day you were born, the latitude, longitude, where the sun was, where the moon was. Scientifically, it's supposed to have some kind of influence or effect on the fluidity, the flow in your being. 100,000 miles of arteries, most of them are microscopic, vamping and coursing through those veins, or some element of salt water. That's why we can say that you're 50 to 60% water. The Earth is 70% water, the whole planet. And that out in the ether is this mist, this moisture. A cloud is mist and moisture. When I speak, my breath is moisture. Scripture says God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship in spirit. Must worship God as God. Must worship spirit as spirit. Must worship moisture as moisture. Must be in the movement as movement. The momentum as momentum. We're bundles of energy. You're alive. And the more you're in touch and intact with that, your flow on the earth is different. Water creates its own gullies and valleys and cuts through rock and mountains and makes its space and place on the universe and goes back from the land into the ocean and then drawn up by the clouds and into the mist and rain, and it rains back, and it's just a cycle of moisture, a cycle of movement. It never stops. That's the infinite you. First, the earth was all water, and then volcanic and energetic energy out of from the bowels pushed. That's what an island is. Pushes it up out into the water. And if you look underwater, you'll see mountains and valleys and vegetation. It's beautiful. Now we can do that with cameras. People scuba dive. I've only scuba dove once, but I've snorkeled a lot of times. And sometimes in certain parts of the world, the water is so clear, you can see, seems like you can see hundreds of miles down, or at least 100 miles down. You don't know, but you see clarity all the way down. It stops somewhere. The sky doesn't. And so that's the mystery. The mist, we don't know where it ends. It doesn't seem like it does end. And somehow, because of the 5 portions that we're made of that's connected to the Milky Way in our galaxy, we know deep down inside us that there is no end to us. Consciously. We're always going to know. We've always known. And I say we came here knowing. But between the womb and the tomb, we go through this spiritual amnesia, and we forget. For centuries, astronomers and philosophers and tribe elders have been tapping into the celestial power of the moon for everything from healing rituals to harvesting crops. Throughout the history of the human race, because the first religious pursuit there was curiosity about the ether or ether. If you look straight, for many years they thought the world was flat. So the line, the horizon, which comes from the Greek god Horus, sun god, we get the word hour, H-O-R-U-S, Horus, and hour or horizon. It looked like it stopped out yonder. Even in the Bible, when it was written, the earlier writers thought the world was flat. We've only learned now. We thought that everything revolved around the earth, including the sun, that the sun came up and down. Actually, the earth revolves around the sun and the moons and the planets, and we're all out there together floating in this ether. These different sizes and expressions of energy and light and darkness and gullies and valleys and moisture and mist and wind and air and knowing. The sun knows itself. The rain knows itself. The tree knows its truth. The little animals and insects and the little amoebas, the things that you don't know. There's all over us. There's living entities on us. There's something on you right now having a baby. Something on you right now making a baby. There's something that you can't see that's defecating and urinating and procreating. And there's something on it that's doing the something. And there's something on it, then that's the infinity. Life just keeps coming and going and keeps making and repeating and resounding and resonating with itself. And all that creates energy and sound and movement. The Greek word for sound is eikos. Echo is we got our English word echo. That's a sound out of the past. Faith cometh by hearing, akuo, acoustics, rhythms, syncopations, incantations, invocations. You're inviting and invoking and inciting something all the time. We're not only created beings, we're creative beings, and we're creating beings. Ooh, I feel the Holy Ghost. You're creating something unconsciously. All I want you to do is do it with intention. Because some of the things you created unconsciously have put you through hell. And those things happen all the time. When I say you do things unconsciously, you're creating urine, you're creating saliva, the moisture of the body, the sweat and the oils and fluids that come out of you. Every 7 years you have brand new lung organs. Every 29 days you have a whole new covering of skin. And skin is the largest muscle in the human body. And it recreates itself about every 29 days. That's what all that dead skin is, and whiteness on your, and ashiness on your heels and your elbows. And we of the darker hue, we notice ours more, and we put a little lotion. You white folks don't even know you dying, but you're dying anyway.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. I got a couple of them in here today. Where's my Anglo? I got a couple in here. But we usually use lotion, which I call religion, which really it covers up the dying process. It disguises it. But you're really just clogging your pores. What we need is an exfoliant to scrape the old skin off and make room for the new. That's what we're creating with this whole idea of new wine that Jesus referred to in Scripture as new wine and new wine skins, not repairing but replacing in this generation the old wine skins with some new modality, some new spiritual paradigm that we feel committed to and commissioned to help create and or enhance or at least facilitate, if not create, because I think everybody's going to create their own. I'm excited about it. It's a thrill to be alive and to feel all this. So they discovered a secret that's so sacred, so powerful, so misunderstood that modern science and culture deemed it to be witchcraft or sorcery. That's why people don't like astrology. They're afraid of it, religious folks. Folks think it's witchcraft. The first person that came up with the alphabet was considered a witch doctor. The first person that could add 1 and 1 and create 2, or 2 and 2 and create 4, was considered involved in witchcraft. But they took numbers and figures and signs, and scientists, the knowers, the Gnostics in another sense, were considered demon-possessed. The person who took letters and created the alphabet was on some kind of drug, some kind of high, and they came up with these ideas. Some people get in between those stages in that ether. That's why I think, as I alluded to in some of the other lectures, that this whole preoccupation with opioids and pot or cannabis, painkillers and pot supposedly deadens or kills certain pain, is a medicine that treats certain illnesses, puts people in between realities, in between places. I think it's probably going to be used both as medicinal and recreational all over the country, and maybe just a matter of a few years, because there's something that's calling for it. I know it seems dangerous and reckless and sinful to some people, but if you name it that, that's what it'll be to you. But if it isn't, you don't name it that way, I think there's this call for, and we won't need all that stuff later, except those are herbs from the earth. And the scripture says that the Hebrew Bible says that creation says you are free to eat from any of the trees or truths in the garden. I kind of think it was a little cannabis or something like that out there, because it's a herb. Now, our carnivorous, our carnal appetite wants meat and flesh, and we are that. but there's a deep calling to deep in us, something beyond what we've known. So there's something pretty powerful about the sky, the secret or sacred powerful thing that has been demonized. And that secret is you can create miracles when you harmonize with the rhythm of the universe. Miracles are really natural occurrences of the universe, like life itself. How a sperm or seed can fertilize an egg, and then through some kind of orgasmic physical expression, then it can produce an organic development of a fetus. Fingers and fingernails and earlobes and eyelashes and all that stuff organically evolves in the womb, and then it becomes a living organism. And then you start organizing its future and its life, from buying the bassinet and the crib to Pampers, and then preparing for the college. And I mean, that's all natural. That's all very earthy, and it's in harmony with the rhythm of the universe. The sounds and echoes and vibrations and syncopations and, again, provocations and invocations and invitations and incitations of the universe. We're all one with everything. Powerful. So when you harness the moon's power, or the cosmos conspires to make your life perform its purpose and destiny, and then it makes your dreams come true. It's connecting to the moon's power, of course, and the sun's reality, and the stars, and the dirt, and the plants, and everything works. All things work together for good and/or God to those who recognize God into, through, and as them, and submit their lives to that course or cause. I often say the syllabus carries, or the soul carries the syllabus. Syllables are the smallest expression of a word that is in existence. It's the vowel sound without the consonants. It's that in-between place. The syllables and syllabi, or the syllabuses of life, are things that are still mystical to us. One little syllable, one little sound carries an energy and a vibration and a syncopation in it that is explosively powerful. I know this is weird language, and you think, ooh, what is he into? It's what's in me. It's not what I'm into. It's what's into me, or intimacy. The most intimate thought I have is nonverbal. The most intimate vision I have is non-physical. The most intimate reality I experience is non-earthy or earthly. There's something else. There's something other than. And when we get to that place, there's no competition there. There's no intimidation there. There's no defense. There's no alarm. You're alerted. You're aware. You're alerted but not alarmed. There's no call to arms. You're not defensive. You don't even have to protect it. You just project it out of you. It's called expressing. It's being pressed out of you. Every time I go through a real tense experience and I feel under pressure, I start expressing myself differently. I experience myself and my soul differently, more powerfully, more realistically, more practically. There's a different kind of practice that I enter into when I'm squeezed. You'll never know what's inside you till somebody squeezes it, or something squeezes it out of you. We're almost finished, but this is just fascinating. I love talking about it. So each phase of the moon holds a powerful manifesting purpose. And the moon does go through phases, and we can actually look up and see them. The new moon, perfectly positioned between the earth and the sun, is the prime starting point of all manifestation. So when they announced that a new moon is coming, I feel the energy in my body. I couldn't always associate it with a new moon, because it's like a new move. It's a new insight. The dark sky represents our deepest wishes. In this emptiness, there's a sense of limitless possibility. When you can't see as clearly, there's nothing out there but hope and expectation. The new moon is the time to plant seeds and set positive intentions. My mom some women cut their hair or wash their hair or trim it, or they do stuff. Black folks' hair got to be done special. Sometimes you got to go on a 3-day fast to tackle it. And my mother had hers, and my 4 daughters, I remember it was a ritual. She had, heating iron and curl. You had to wash it, then detangle it, then heat it and iron it and curl it. They went through this process. The house was smoky, and Mom was always in a bad mood on the Saturdays. I didn't like that season. But she would do it like her mother did, according to the seasons. But people did the same thing with the other things they sowed into the earth, the crops, the seasons, whether winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there. There's seasons and sessions of life, and many times they are influenced and affected by the stars or the moon, just like the gravitational pull. So the new moon is the time to plant seeds and set positive intentions. The first quarter marks the halfway point between the new moon and the forthcoming full moon, the quarter moon. The expanding light of the sun is, as it reflects off the moon, is a reminder to make sure your actions match your intentions. The moon is powerful. There's a lot we're going to learn about, and we're going to keep teaching till we get a hold of it and the moon gets a hold of us. This is Moon Day. Come Moon Day. Come Monday. What happens on Monday? Monday has movements. Moon Day has seasons. Moon Day has gravitational pull. We've learned a lot from Sunday, and we've learned a lot about Saturn Day. But Monday, I've decided I'm not going to be depressed about Monday, or I'm not going to be upset about getting back into the flow or the saddle. Sort of the route can sometimes seem like a rut. It doesn't have to be. It's part of who you are. It's part of your destiny. Part of your doing. When you're in alignment with your soul's intentions, when your soul's inventions or conventions, your soul convenes with other things and other realities, the parallel universes, they're all coming together. The moon's growing energy will pull everything you desire into light and make it a reality. Here's a preview of what the weekly videos are like for our subscribers. And we create these, and then I send you an email, and we video something. This is the first time we've shown this. So sit back and enjoy. And when you join us, become a member, this is what you get every Monday. And then we'll give you an email every day for 5 days a week of the week. You're there.
Our English word energy comes from the Greek word energeo, from in or within, and ergon, which means work. It denotes force or vigor of expression or being, and something we all express, but not always forcefully or vigorously. Vigor is valor, it's vitality, it's validity. We are all essentially huge bundles of energy, and this is what makes our lives matter and how we create matter. Matter is substance in general, as distinct from mind and spirit. And in physics, matter is that which occupies space. But they cooperate and coordinate around life and our lives. Energy is basically the science of moving or movement. It is the active, creative, emotional power in your life. And emotion is energy in motion. The speed of energy.
Interesting. I wanted to hear more of what I was saying. Sometimes I never know what I'm going to say till I've said it, and then I go back and listen because I write these things out. And as I'm not writing, I remember Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the book Conversations with God. I was stunned. I had him at my house. I'll show you the interview one time here on this show. He said that he doesn't reread or rewrite anything. He writes it and sends it straight to his editor. And I was telling him that when I do books, usually my editor has to take the manuscript from me by Caesarean section because I don't give it. Every time they send it back, I change it. I write it in. And he said, remember, you're not writing it. The other energy or the gods or God or the universe or however you want to name it, God is writing through you. Very powerful. He trusts that he's really hearing from God. Sometimes those who say we do are not sure because we do a lot of editing. Here's what we send you on. You'll see that video on Monday morning every week. Then every day, I'll send you an email along the subject, just like you're seeing on the screen there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Of course, these are yours forever. They're little wisdom proverbs, things that come through us. We quote other thinkers, and it's like an additional scripture. Scripture just means writing, okay? It's not a Bible, but Bible just means book. All of these will be someday put in a book and offered to you as well. But we want to help facilitate and cooperate with your flow and your fluidity spiritually. I'm more excited about what I say in here today than I've ever been in all the sermons I've preached all my life. I'm hearing fresh. In fact, I was telling somebody the other day, 40-some years of preaching, nobody really paid that much attention to what I said. They did a lot they paid attention to what I was doing, what I sang, and what I created, whether that was a church or a Zusa or whatever. But only when I really started saying something, the people say, "You hear what he said? He said it ain't no hell." People are still getting upset because now I'm making them listen more intently and for deeper clarity, more expanded clarity. I'm listening more intently. I got bored with my stuff. I got bored with both with what I was saying and what I was seeing. I needed some new scenery in my soul. My soul was thirsty for new wine. And when I started asking for it nonverbally, it started coming. For when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It started coming. And then the old wineskins couldn't stand its potency. And ultimately, the things that I had built and confined and was the resident of everything I was doing, being, and saying, burst. That's when I sort of, quote unquote, lost everything. And I'm starting all over again at 65 years old. But I am so in love with what I'm saying and what I'm seeing, and no opposition against it. Somebody said to me today on the phone, "You're very controversial." And I like that, because it's a law of physics. Anything in motion causes friction. If you can't take the heat, get out. In fact, the scripture says, "Beware when all men speak well of you." And for the first several years of my life, everybody was speaking well of me. I mean, I wasn't used to negative feedback in most anyways. They loved my sermons, whatever they were. They loved my songs. They loved my services. They loved me. And then all of a sudden, all that stopped. And I had to realize what was motivating me, rethink what was motivating me, and what was the movements in me, and what I was saying. And I'm very happy. I'm more fulfilled, and I want you to be the same way. If I seem like I'm trying to get people to change, I am, because the freedom I enjoy and the more lucid, non-dogmatic, non-emphatically doctrinal positions that I'm taking, it's amazing. It's something I want everyone to enjoy. There's no judgment in it, in the fact that it should make you uncomfortable. It might initially. But it will comfort that which first made me uncomfortable was comforting my soul. I was feeling stroked, not striked, like beaten and hit. I was embraced, not embalmed. I was coming alive. I still am. It has added years to my life and life to my years. It'll do the same for you. We're here. We're divinely ordained to be here for you and to connect with you in spirit. Join us. Become a part of this. Let's create a massive movement. And remember, we're going to have cruises. We're working on some. I usually plan them a year in advance, sometimes a little less time. We'll actually take trips together to Greece and Rome and what we call the Holy Land. I've been there 12 times. There's some things I want to show you there in history and tradition. And my tours are going to be a little bit different because my perception is different. I have some friends in Israel who are about as enlightened as I am. They're Jews, but they're mystical Jews, and they give me special accesses to places in the land that normal tourist groups don't see, and that's been happening for years. They are in tune with to me, and I am to them, and I think we're going to grow together. It's going to be a great, great journey, and keep a journal before we all adjourn, which is what we're about to do right now. This is Come Monday. I'm Carlton Pearson. Thanks for your time. Thank you for your consciousness. Thank you for your support, for your thoughts, for your questions. your emails. And for just tonight, go to ComeMonday.org, join the movement, and become a fresh momentum to your own soul. God bless you. God be you. Namaste and Ashe. Good night.